Okay, so let's look at some of the code because this is really the biggest hurdle in this project was realizing some of these ideas in UDK. I'm not totally convinced that this is the best engine for these kinds of ideas, but it's a good starting point. And we'll see what happens with it in the future. Okay, so each of these balls, and okay, so some of this is going to require a little bit of understanding of UDK that I'm not going to go into in super detail. But basically each of these is a K actor, which means it can be affected by physics simulations. So the things that are really important to set on the physics simulation are under, yeah, it's like a lot of variables to set. Okay, so you have to make sure you align all of these channels here, at least like whatever different kinds of objects you're going to use in the physics, they all have to like be on the same channel. That's pretty obvious. And then here you got to make sure that you've set the collision type to block all. That basically means that it will still pick up touch events, but it will also make the objects bounce into each other and also bounce into the player. And just as an aside, some of these things are not super clear from looking at documentation or people discussing UDK. And really, like, the meat of UDK is in long videos of people just like saying things that are incredibly helpful. So hopefully this will help somebody, me going over this. This value here, no encroach check. For whatever reason, you almost always want no encroach check off if you're going to be colliding K actors with especially trigger volumes. And we'll talk about the trigger volume in a second. So those are the main things that you have to make sure are absolutely right. Also I have these set to wake on level start. That just means that you don't have to touch them before they start to become physics objects. If I turn that off, well, you can actually see it. Let's see, which one am I on? This is the last one here. I'm going to turn it off. Okay, yeah, you see how that didn't fall? And then as soon as I touch it, okay, yeah, it falls. So that's not super important, but it's related to this issue of the objects being picked up by the collision detection, depending on whether or not they're moving. So right now they're all sort of in this area where there's this glass where they're not being included in the collision detection. But if we potentially had them starting out in the rest of the world, then yeah, they would need to be activated and moving in some way. So that would be a good way to get that going. Okay, so the other big thing is, hey, we've got this plane going here. I need to make a comment of, there was a really good tutorial that I found that I should give credit to that I don't remember off the top of my head, but of how to make this scrolling plane effect with a cool sort of like glow. So I'll put that in the YouTube comments or whatever I post this on. But here's the important part. You have this plane, and this is a interp actor. So that's so that we can animate it. And then you got this other thing, dynamic trigger volume. Okay, so the dynamic trigger volume is attached to the interp actor. The interp actor is animated. The dynamic trigger volume is what actually detects the collisions with the balls. That took me a long time to figure out, and that's the only way I've been able to get this to work. So that's the way that you should probably try to do it first. There's not a whole lot of very complicated stuff going on with this, but let's look at the trigger volume. Mostly just what's important is this collision type, that it's touch, but we don't want weapons, although we're not really using weapons. We just have like the physics weapon. But you don't want this set to block. I can actually show you what happens. If you set that to block, kind of funny. Oh, wait. You know, oh, it doesn't work because it's on the trigger volume. Okay, sorry. Yeah, originally when I was trying this, potentially if you were trying to do this with the plane detecting the collisions, okay, yeah, if you set that to block, you would get this weird effect where it pushes the player out. Okay, let's not worry about that. Okay,